Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. Bob here. Thanks so much for stopping by. So the other day I was killing time playing around with some different strap and bracelet options on a few different watches. I ended up putting the SKX back on the stock Jubilee. I'll put it on maybe once a year and it's always fun to wear. It's very comfortable actually, but it dawned on me that the SKX was very much deserving of being in the Seiko Legends series that I started earlier this year. In a lot of ways, it's the most legendary of them all. Now, I don't usually do the top 10, top 5, or list style videos, but I thought it would work perfectly in this situation. So today we're going to be counting down the top 5 reasons the SKX is a Seiko Legend. So, how in the heck did a watch like the SKX become so popular? For a watch that has quite a few negatives, we have the notorious alignment problems, the somewhat dated movement, of course, the cheap bracelet, which I've grown to really love over the years. But it's funny that this still manages to make its way into the watch box of many collectors at all levels. Now, there's a whole lot of reasons the SKX is so legendary. My list today won't cover them all and it isn't in any particular order, but here we go. So number one is the fact that it's a very popular introduction to the hobby for many. A lot of people come to the hobby by way of the SKX, and that could have easily happened to me. I started out with a couple of fashion brands, a couple of Citizens and Bulivas. My wife bought me a couple as gifts. Somewhere along the line, though, I discovered the Oris Aquas. I think it was from a magazine ad, but I'm not sure. I just loved the look and I found reviews of it, which led to other reviews of other watches, and the SKX was prominent in those searches. Now, it didn't end up being my first, I guess you could say, serious watch, but it could have easily been. And even though a few purchases were made ahead of the SKX for me, it wasn't long before I had my first of several of these that have landed in the collection. Now, I even know one person that bought the SKX on Amazon, knew nothing about the watch, just thought it looked cool, eventually stumbled on a YouTube review, and same thing as me, found the hobby. And I think a lot of people share that same story. Number two is history, and particularly its strong lineage in the history of Seiko divers. I love that you can look at a dive watch like this and comparing it to almost every Seiko diver since they've made divers, you see that certain DNA that's been carried through all these years. It plays a role in the progression of Seiko divers, and it's nice that you can get a piece of that history at such an affordable price. If you look at icons in the dive watch world, you're going to find watches like the Submariner, the 50 Fathoms, the Seamaster, but to have an icon like the SKX at a reasonable cost is really great and contributes massively to making the SKX a Seiko legend. That brings me to number three, which is value. Now, the SKX was discontinued last year and maybe isn't the value proposition that it once was with the prices rising, but when these were first released in 1996 and for many years afterwards, the SKX was really the pinnacle when it came to value dive watches. Not only do you have that brand history attached to the watch, you also get a full-fledged ISO certified diver. One comparable you'll see often, and I believe I did a comparison video a few years back, is the Orient Rays and Makos. In a lot of ways, they're the better watch, but the SKX has a little more personality to me. Don't get me wrong, I love the Orients, but the SKX has some intangibles that make it a little more special in my eye. Number four for me is design. As Seiko designs watches that really wear nicely. Even the larger watches like the Tuna or the Marine Master 300 that I have here tend to wear much smaller considering the dimensions. I love how the case is designed with that curvature that comes back in towards the case back. That, along with the 4 o'clock crown, allows for a full range of motion on wrist. Seiko has a knack for making watches just kind of melt into the wrist, and the SKX is a perfect example of that. The watch isn't a small one, but the shorter lug to lug of just over 45 millimeters will work on just about any wrist size. And if you still find it a little bit big, as a backup, you always have the option of the SKX 013. So between the different colorways and size options, there's an SKX that should suit just about anyone. The last thing that deserves a mention, and coming in at number 5, is the customization options. I've dabbled a little with some bezel and insert changes. I actually have a sapphire crystal I may tackle swapping here on the channel soon too, but there's guys out there really making art with these things. There's so many companies offering parts. The design options are endless. I'll throw up a shot of some mods my friend Henry has made. He's the owner of York and Front Watches. He's into modding Seikos. He actually just posted this on his Instagram yesterday and was nice enough to send it for me for this video. So thanks to Henry for that. If you're on Instagram, give him a follow at Jubhat for shots from his collection, or at York and Front Watches for his watch brand that's coming out very soon. So even if you're not into heavy-duty modding, the SKX is an absolute strap monster. It works great on pretty well anything, and as a bonus, due to the fact that the watch is so popular, there's a load of companies making fitted straps and bracelets for it. I especially like wearing mine on fitted rubber straps. So let's close this out with a wrist shot here, and you can see from the side profile how this really hugs the wrist, and that's the case for a lot of Seiko watches, in particular Seiko divers. Even the stock bracelet wears great. Off the wrist, it feels cheap, but once it's on, it's actually one of the more comfortable bracelets I've had. So I know this could have been a much longer video. There's so many reasons the SKX has reached its legendary status in the watch world, but there's a whole lot of videos and info out there already on the watch, so just a quick one. So that's it for today. Appreciate you stopping by. Be safe out there, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.